All right, hold on. Let's start this beat from the top. Come on, swimming kids. Okay. Yeah. Turn me up in my headphones real quick. They call me One Take Drake.
No, they don't.
Let me hear this beat drop. Is this the whole beat? Cause I ain't gonna be able to rap on this, but I'm gonna try. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. The kid's swimming. You know I'm winning. Leave me smile. You see me grinning. I be doing what I can. I be doing what it does. I got the skills, so I thank the Lord above for giving me these bars. You all know I go hard, but I don't have to go hard because I'm not a, oh, don't say that, but I gotta keep flowing. You know I got the beat. Okay, let me give you this treat. Got you here. I don't know what I'm saying, but that's okay, I'm playing. You girl, you know what I'm saying. I'm trying to be your man. Your one and only. Baby girl, can you put it on me? Who you talking about? I'm talking about my wife. I don't know who you think about. You know I got it right. Now I'm going to rap in the morning. I'm going to rap at night. It don't matter what it is, because I keep it tight. But you keep it tight, pause. No, I don't keep that tight. But you know I keep it right, and you know I am so right. When I write with this pen, you can understand where I've been. Oh my gosh, is it a sin? No, I just keep on rapping as much as I can do it. You see me in the sandals, well, I'm trying to wear a shoe it. Where the shoe fits, where the boot fits. I don't know, but I'm true fit. Everybody see me in the gym because I'm true fit. Ooh, I tell the truth fit, truth podcast. I don't know, but I can last as long as you want me to. But I don't know what you're talking about. Man, let me be right back. This is Fattacheenie. I'm out.
What's wrong with you, boy?
I am tired, y'all. We're going to see how this comes out in editing. But what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fattacheenie TV, Fattacheenie Reacts. Listen, I got to get my boy YIOTA another video. By this time, listen, we just going to finish the series out, okay? I don't care about the likes. Now, I do care about the likes. Please, 20 likes now. But we're not really that worried about the likes. We're just going to finish the series out. Here on Fattacheenie TV, I am big on finishing series out. I hate when my favorite YouTubers stick to something and then they get distracted or a new wave comes in and then they don't finish the story or finish the series. You may not have, or I may not have as much subscribers as some of the bigger people, but here on Fattacheenie TV, no matter what, you know if I stick to it, I'm gonna stick through it, okay? So that's also not trying to call myself hypocritical. That means me and Alana gotta finish Super Mario World, even if it's not getting the views or the likes. Now, there's some people that love it. But listen, I'm talking too much. Let's get into the video. Let's go.
Long ago, an astrologer looked to the sky and found something called the primeval current in the stars above. Then, miraculously, what they saw in the cosmos actually manifested in reality, and the very amber of the stars rained down on the lands between.
They said,
this
so
glintstone
just
of the cosmos would go on to inspire those that studied it. But there was also a darkness up there.
Like raindrops rain on me. All right, I'm sorry.
Between the stars.
This is too long of a video.
What some saw
you can't
would
be
break their
messing around.
minds and inspire a fate that was worse than death. This is the story of Elden Ring's cosmic sorcery, a force that would define an entire era of life
brothers
in the lands between.
Okay, Vada, how is he getting all this footage? Somebody in the comments, please tell me. The lore of Elden Ring's cosmic sorcerers. Chapter 1. See, now he got it in the chapters now. The power of the night sky.
It all began with the founding Rain of Stars, a legendary sorcery that was the founding glintstone sorcery. You might have missed this spell in your playthrough, but it's located here, hidden along an illusory path leading to the heretical rise within the mountaintops of the giants. Its description reveals that it is the eldest primeval sorcery.
Believe, brother, believe.
Said to have been discovered by an ancient astrologer.
Well, we were fighting
we don't know who this astrologer was, but we know they were not
Godskin
alone.
apostles. He was making it rain
here
on them.
In these icy peaks closest to the sky that the astrologers who preceded the sorcerers established themselves. And with ancient tools of astronomy, they looked to the cosmos above and read fate in the stars. But this was more than mere stargazing. The stars quite literally govern fates in Elden Ring. We learn this from the starlight shards and amber starlight items. The former is a pale blue shard. It's what remains of a passing flash of starlight, and the latter is the same, except it has a pale amber glow, and it tells of the belief that if the stars command our fates, then amber-hued stars must command the fates of the gods. During Celovus's questline, the blue starlight shards are distilled into this blue tonic, which can be given to other NPCs to turn them into summonable puppets. You are quite literally using starlight to forcibly control and take away their fates when you do this. These exact same intoxicating drafts had historically been used in the Eternal City, as is exemplified by the Night Maiden and Swordstress puppets, who actually chose this controlled fate for themselves, presumably so that they could better serve the needs of the Eternal City. You can learn more about that in this video, where we discuss the Eternal City in its entirety. But the Nox of the Eternal City weren't the only ones that were drawing power from the stars in this way. The royal house of Caria, too, drew great power from astrology. The telescope item, for example, is actually a smaller part of a larger astrological tool that was once used by members of the Carian royal family for their own brand of Carian astrology that revolved around Renala and the full moon rather than the stars. But to most, the moon was not considered equal to the stars, and it was actually the stars that most would draw upon for their sorcery. These sorcerers would come together at Raya Lucaria, a place of learning that institutionalized the practice of glintstone sorcery.
What's it called?
And
Renala?
This is our little triumvirate of three factions. There's the Nox and their descendants, there's the Carians, and there's the sorcerers of Raya Lucaria, who all trace their origins back to astrology. These factions overlap at times, they interact and clash, and their shared history is fascinating and complicated, but it all comes back to the cosmos in the end.
To the moon, mysterious as the dark side of the moon.
But let's return once again.
I dodged that. I missed it. Mysterious as the dark side of the moon. Watch out, y'all. She got the snow. Oh my God.
To the founding reign of stars, which tells us that the glimpse of the primeval current that the ancient astrologer saw became a reality, and the stars amber rained down on this land. But what exactly is the primeval current? Well, let's break down the term. The word current means it's a moving flow, or torrent, and the word primeval means that this torrential flow likely existed from the very beginning of time. And thanks to the description for Comet Azure, we know that the primeval current is a distant starry expanse, something that is visually similar to the torrential comet generated from this spell. But what's truly amazing about this cosmic force is that somehow, this ancient astrologer managed to manifest a rain of stars upon the Earth merely after glimpsing it in the primeval current of the cosmos far away. And I speculate that starlight shards are actually another example of this phenomenon. Their description reveals that these are what remains of a passing flash of starlight, and we exclusively loot these at the foot of giant stone astrolabes, which are these ancient stargazing tools. Thus, rather than being a piece of star that has fallen to the ground, I think these might be a byproduct of the act of looking up at the stars. Why else would we loot them here? And so, in this same manner, first established with these starlight shards and then the founding reign of stars, glintstone sorcerers would go on to replicate this phenomenon, using their powers of comprehension to conceive of new cosmic elements that could be manifested in reality. Or put another way, they formulated spells that let them throw giant rocks at each other, and it was a huge hit with everyone. But among these glintstone sorcerers were some who wished to truly understand the mysteries of the primeval current, no matter the cost. These were sorcerers like Lusat and Azure, who would literally become crystal in order to sync up with and better understand these powers of the cosmos. And then there was Selen, the graven
remember
witch
her.
who
I could never
threw
free
all
her.
ethics to the wind and wished to see humanity ascend no matter the cost. And make no mistake, the stars are alive, in a sense. Look at Estelle, for example. This is a malformed star, but a star nonetheless, birthed from a void, or so it is said. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Most sorcerers, it seems, would just be content with merely manifesting cosmic power, and so they would embed a piece
Them
of
Burger
physical
King brothers
glintstone
was
into a
messing
staff,
me up
and
with
then
that
use that
move.
glintstone as a sort of
I couldn't do
catalyst
nothing
for
with it.
the star.
What's good, y'all? Knock, knock. I'ma dodge you. Oh, God. I said it too much. Okay, my bad.
As above. And since glintstone was needed to channel spells, and since sorcerers needed glintstone to study, I think having access
I really
to
want
physical
some rock
glintstone
candy
would have
now.
been
That
a
joint looks
really
so good.
important thing. And luckily for the sorcerers, glintstone, being sourced from meteors and comets, had fallen to the lands between before.
Shout out to Fujitaro
So
with
these
the
valuable
gravity.
crystals were mined and put to great use. And so,
Oh, yeah, the
atop
smithing
and
stones.
amidst enormous quantities of glintstone in the lakes of Leonia, a place of learning was built, an institution known as the Raya Lucaria Academy.
The institution.
Sorcerers,
of the
as a whole,
Raya
were powerful. They could read fate in the stars, fire cosmic projectiles at
Oh,
their
this
enemies,
music's
and
not copyright?
potentially even command the fates of others.
Dang, he
So
put out Let Me
naturally,
Solo
there
her?
needed to be an institution for their power, a place of learning, but also a place of hierarchy and even governance, where rules about sorcery could be debated and enforced.
See,
When you journeyed
remember
through
I was
Raya
talking about they
Lucaria,
was
you
all
would
up
have
in them
collected
books
these
and not in that real
symbols
life.
of their institution. These
needed
are
some of the
stone
lore.
masks called
See, they the super spiritual squad, y'all. That's what I call people that are like super spiritual, and they only want to talk about the Bible nonstop, but they don't have like no real life experience. How they just be like, you need to be in the Word, and the Word is a great thing, and and they just getting a hard onto the Word. Yo, they're the super spiritual squad. You can't fight those people with spiritual because they live in a different world than we do, bro. They don't be going out in public and talking to people and actually like having real conversations with people. They just be in their rooms all day, like reading the Word of God and not actually applying it. So with these dudes, you can't fight holiness with them because it ain't gonna work. You gotta get real life with them. All right.
glintstone crowns, and not just anyone is supposed to wear these crowns. They are a symbol of achievement, and they represent one's mastery of a certain conspectus or school of
kinda
learning
giving me
within the
vibes
academy.
of like the George
They also make a
Washington
good weapon,
wigs,
if all else fails.
when
But
they always
why
have
was
them
this
same
design
curlers,
specifically chosen
them
as a
same
symbol
hats.
of achievement?
I
Well,
don't know, I
according
might be
to
looking
many
into
item
it.
descriptions, there isn't just
Too much.
life in stone, but there is a wisdom contained in stone as well. So their masks were crafted with stone and set with glintstone. The glintstone is typically set upon the eyes and or the brain, a tradition that I speculate originated with the sorcerer Azur, who
Makes sense.
was one of the first, if not the first, glintstone sorcerer. His
Oh,
blue-green glintstone crown was set with crystals and eventually replaced his own brain and skull altogether, which
he got
enhanced
them
his
rocks
powers
on his
by
brain.
helping
He
him
been smoking them rocks
catalyze
too
with
much.
glintstone.
Smoke rocks.
Though it clearly came at great physical cost, and I speculate that this crown eventually replaced his own brain and skull, because glintstone kind of does that. It corrodes, it consumes. We see its effects
he
best
about
on
to
other
eat it?
creatures, like the dragon Smaragd, who was a devourer of sorcerers with a body that became corroded over time by their glintstones, thanks to
even
that
see.
strict sorcerer diet. But as with Azur, this corrosion did not come without benefits, and he now breathes a powerful glintstone breath. The sorcerer Azur was
him
an
out,
early
though.
sorcerer of the primeval current. But he wasn't the only one.
Dang, that
There was
move looked
also
tough.
the sorcerer Lusat, who experienced a similar glintstone convergence of body and mind. Together,
doing- they
these
getting
masters
stoned,
of sorcery
y'all.
each glimpsed
That's
a
what
part
happens when
of
you
the
get
primeval
stoned.
current.
It
And
messes
from
with your
what I gather, the primeval
brain.
current
Stoned,
seems like
it's
the
not
sort of thing
good.
that
See, look at
can only
y'all.
really be glimpsed once before it either breaks
Glintstones.
or terrifies the viewer.
Glintstones.
Azure and
We smoking
Lusat only have
Glintstones.
one
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
primeval current spell each,
I'm
after
not
all.
smoking Glintstones.
For instance, when Lusat glimpsed into the primeval current, he conceived of the spell Stars of Ruin as he beheld the final moments of a great star cluster, and upon seeing it, he too was broken. And when Azure glimpsed into the primeval current, he saw darkness and conceived of the spell Comet Azure, but was left both bewitched and fearful of the abyss. Both Azure and Lusat clearly had a prominent role at the Academy, but Azure specifically was the first founding Glintstone sorcerer to have an impact upon Raya Lucaria, for there is a line of research called the Carolus Conspectus, dubbed the oldest of the Academy's lineages of study, begat by the sorcerer Azure. Sorcerers who follow in his footsteps by studying this conspectus pursue the mysteries of comets, leading to new kinds of comet sorceries like Glintstone Comet Shard
Dumb
and
joint was
Shard
messing
Spiral.
me up, yo. I
Each
hated
conspectus appears to be named after a founding
Oh,
individual.
dang. Okay, they
These
got
stone
faces.
crowns are designed after actual people, after all, people you can
Why baby
see
girl
in
just
the
called a
flesh
witch?
upon their matching portraits
twin
in the
sage,
Academy.
Olivia
So
Nessus.
even though the Carolus Conspectus follow the path began by the sorcerer Azure, their conspectus of learning must have been sort of formalized by someone named Carolus. But as time went on, more conspectuses needed to be created as new lines of inquiry were discovered.
I think
and
I saw
so
those.
logically, the Olivinus Conspectus should have been the second to be created, for this line of research is also concerned with the study of meteors in the primeval current, except this conspectus began with the sorcerer Lusat. Their spells study clusters of stars, with lesser spells like
I'm hungry,
Glintstone
getting
Stars
nerd
and
clusters,
Star Shower,
y'all. I'm
all
drinking a little
echoing
bit like
the great
rock candy.
Stars of Ruin spell that originally broke Master Lusat. Lusat and Azure were true masters at the Academy, after all. They were actually dubbed Grandmasters, specifically, with special robes that reflected that, and it seems like no one ever went on to achieve such a rank or sacrifice as much as they did. And they sacrificed a lot. They can barely even move anymore, and when Selen talks about them, she talks about their bodies rather than a traditionally living person. Perhaps they've actually ascended to a higher plane of existence. That might explain why they weren't really around anymore to form their
She
own
looked like she taking a
conspectuses,
nap.
something that was left
A
to
rock candy
Carolus
nap.
and Olivinus and others instead. With such enigmatic founders, many dedicated themselves to the study of Glintstone, taking vows of virtue and austerity. In return, they received the deep blue robe of Raya Lucaria, and were able to study on its grounds. Some nobles of Leyndell were even permitted to study here clearly, though their meagre accomplishments never warranted them earning a stone crown, and fittingly, you only see them casting Glintstone Pebble
I
in
know,
game.
they only got
To
one
assist
little...
in their learning, a powerful spellcaster would often go and cast a spell called Terra Magica from the tallest belfry of the Academy. This sigil would be cast with such strength and allow for such a vivid experience of spellcasting success that it turned many a fledgling into a true sorcerer in a flash of understanding. But not all learning took place at the Academy. In fact, a couple of signature spells were specifically given to those who departed from the
Oh, yeah, the
Academy to
giants.
embark on journeys. Starlight is a spell that guides such sorcerers in dark places.
See, I ain't know
and
none of this.
It
I think
reads,
by
even
endgame
during the
my
blackest
intelligence
nights,
was like
sojourns
9.
underground, or imprisonment in jail, the stars are never far from a sorcerer's side. And then there was Glintstone Arc, which would allow these fledgling sorcerers to cleave through the ranks of the fools that would outnumber them on their journeys. Such journeys were
So we need to
encouraged
do a
by the
lesson on the
Academy.
brothers
There was
of-
even a conspectus for this practice called
The
the
Holy
Herodes
Masters.
Conspectus, with a crown that was granted to scholars who engaged in nomadic study away from the Academy. In-game, this crown is worn by errant sorcerer Wilhelm, who fights with night sorceries and wields the Staff of Loss, which enhances night sorceries. This staff doesn't even have a glintstone embedded in its tip, and supposedly it can only cast night sorceries as a result. That's how important asceticism was to some sorcerers, and they believed that it was a powerful path towards discovery.
Champion, would you allow me to hold you?
Oh, Lord.
But briefly.
Shit.
Perhaps you might share with me some of your lively vigor.
Am I cheating on my mistress?
Doing so will grant me the warmth of a champion. And you, I am sure, will bear a Baldakin's blessing. Do you think it vulgar, perhaps?
This conspectus also seemed to see value in depriving the senses. The crown of Herodes is blindfolded, after all. We see this same practice of veiling the eyes down in the Eternal City as well, and the Nox's descendants were of course accomplished practitioners of night sorceries, which seemed to be thematically tied to this blindfolded, ascetic embrace of the void. Moving on though, this habit of sending fledgling sorcerers away must have posed a bit of a problem, however, as when war broke out in the lands between, Raya Lucaria would close and seal its gates, preventing access to most, including its journeying fledgling sorcerers. The only way to get back inside was to use a glintstone key to activate the warp magic within the seals. These keys only seem to belong to accomplished sorcerers, and they remember their users, meaning that thieves or bluntstones like Thops could not get inside. In the current age, Thops mentions that the Academy closed its gates after declaring that they wouldn't interfere with the shattering. Now, this suggests to me that the Academy might have had a bit of a habit of striving for a sort of neutrality or indifference in world affairs. Indeed, they had developed an entire conspectus who sought power in order to quell conflict. These were the battle mages of the Heimer conspectus, who wielded stone clubs and spells of cannon and gavel. A gavel is commonly used as a symbol of judgment, but rather than interfering with outside affairs, I believe the Heimer conspectus mainly functioned as the Academy's judiciary. Their crown is even blindfolded, which is widely regarded in the real world as a symbol of unbiased justice. And with their preparedness for combat, the Heimer conspectus were cited as being the only ones who dared to venture outside whenever war had broken out. And just like the blindfolded members of the Herodes conspectus, the battle mages of Heimer believed that seclusion was no way to foster discovery, and instead believed that it was only a convenient form of escape. That said, we do find sorcerers of other conspectuses outside the Academy as well, though you can sort of infer that they're a bit wary to be away from home because they're often accompanied by marionettes. The marionettes are dolls, constructs that were crafted and animated by the sorcerers who are their masters. There are a couple of variants. There's an avian variant with curved swords that can fly and throw fire pots, and then there's the typical marionettes with spiked spears, short swords, and short bows.
You really need a shield for
short
them.
bows. These will commonly drop down upon you in ambush, and while they like to go a bit ballistic, they do act as crudely effective support for a ton of the sorcerers that you'll meet in-game. You'll even find a few of these down in the Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel, where glintstone miners are hard at work extracting glintstone and ore. These miners don't use conventional tools though. Instead, they mine with a digger's staff, embedded with a glintstone, casting spells such as Shatter Earth or Rock Blaster. A fascinating little detail here though is that these mining spells carried enormous stigma at the Academy because they marked their user as a failed scholar, perhaps as someone who had to turn to menial labor, lacking the intelligence to pursue the complex mysteries of the cosmos. Indeed, the Overseers attack by crushing scraps of glintstone rather than with any advanced sorceries. At the end of the crystal tunnel is a crystallion, an inorganic being that was hewn from crystal long ago. But these are more than mere constructs. They are ancient and even possess a faint sort of intellect dubbed the wisdom of the stone. Long ago, they even made a concord, or an agreement, with the Carian royal family, We don't know the nature of this agreement, but some can be found chilling upon the moonlight altar, allowed to
really
stay
chilling.
in close proximity to their crystals, perhaps. And for their part, we do know that the Crystallians did
just
teach
think
the
about those things
Carians
on
a
the
spell
side,
called
those
Magic
little
Downpour
fingers.
to
I
mark the
hated
occasion.
fingerprints.
And Raya Lucaria sought kinship with these beings as well, for they are close to the ideals of the primeval current, and so are revered guests of the sorcerers. The best example of this might be down in the dimly lit Academy Crystal Cave underneath Raya Lucaria, a crystal cave that
I remember
is not
that
mined,
place.
perhaps out of respect for the Crystallian duo at the end of the tunnel. There are even living quarters down here, and I suspect these belong to a group of sorcerers called the Crystal Cadre, which was a group that was founded to research the wisdom of stone possessed by the
They
Crystallian.
definitely was getting
However,
glimpsed
just
on.
like the primeval current,
Or glitstone
these sorcerers clearly don't
down
have
there,
all the answers on these beings. They
was
call
all
them
just
inscrutable,
messing around
and
the stones,
note that
not doing
they have
nothing.
but one clear purpose, and that is to safeguard their crystals unto the end. Though there is one theory on these beings, and it's that they are waiting, yearning for the return of their creator, who will carve for them new brethren. A few sorcerers down here near the Crystallian are in possession of the Twin Sage Helm, which
Yes.
marks them as members of the Twin Sage Conspectus. These were the elites of the Academy, permitted to study and excel in sorceries of all kinds, and I assume it was these members, these elite members, who would climb out of this cave and cast
when
the
they say
legendary
elite,
Terra
it just
Magica
sound
that would
racist.
cover the entire Academy's grounds
What is an elite
from
member,
this tall
yo?
belfry that we mentioned earlier. But the Twin Sage Helm wasn't the only mark of a proficient scholar. There was also the Witch's Glintstone Crown, which was granted to a scholar who excelled in her studies, which also merited the title of Witch. And again,
They trying
you
to
can
switch
see
that
most of
W
these
with a B,
Conspectus
y'all.
portraits hanging in Raya Lucaria. For example, here is the Witch, the Twin Sage, Carolus, Olivinus, and all of these
Carolus look a little
portraits are
black,
hung
yeah.
in the debate parlor of the Academy, where members would likely have engaged in argument in order to test and help validate their ideas about sorcery.
I remember.
It's also
there was
where I
a
assume they
dog.
argue.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, you got a block too. You got to remember. Oh my God.
About whether certain things even should be allowed to be learned here, or whether certain members should be exiled. But
So how
we'll
did
get to that
Renala
shortly.
get
Because first, the
be
final
the queen?
conspectus that we haven't yet mentioned is the Lazuli conspectus.
He
These
definitely
sorcerers
owned that
studied
glintstone,
lunar
yeah.
sorceries, a quote-unquote heterodox pursuit that views the moon as equal to the stars, with a robe colored in the hue of the full moon,
had that
which
outfit on,
signifies
I ain't
their
gonna
heresy.
lie.
And of course, these
Had that and the
sorceries
little Red
include many
Riding Hood
signature
joint on.
spells of Caria. And so we finally arrive at Caria. This is Carian Manor, and to the south are their stargazing grounds, both situated upon the western coast of Leonia, which, according to the map, has always been closely associated with Carian royalty. They have been around for a long time, a really long time. Specifically, Caria traces its roots all the way back to the ancient astrologers that existed alongside the fire giants. This is most apparent when you're looking at two items. First, the Sword of Night and Flame, which became a storied sword and treasure of Caria Manor. It was clearly crafted to commemorate the astrologers' early experiences with the primeval current
But doesn't it
and
also
their
do
shared
something-
experiences
yeah.
with the fire giants as well. And the fact that Caria inherited this sword
might
suggests that they
main
trace
that
their
sword
ancestry back to the
in,
time of this sword. And then there's the
I don't
Stargazer
know.
heirloom,
I'm
which
gonna
tells of the
respect
rise
my
of
man
Caria
for the
as a
DLC.
house of royalty through Renala and her full moon. The young astrologer gazed at the night sky as she walked. She had always chased the stars every step of her journey. Then she met the full moon, and in time, the astrologer became a queen. This royal house continued this tradition of stargazing and
praise
raised
them when you
princesses and Carian knights to serve as their retainers. One of the foremost Carian knights was named Loretta, a woman we talked about recently in the video I did on the Eternal Cities, as it was rumored that she was an Albinoric. Albinorics,
Didn't
as
know
you may
that.
know if you watched that video, were widely despised in the lands between. though Caria is one of the few factions that seems to be pretty friendly with them. Albinauric sorcerers are found all throughout Caria Manor, and one, named Pidia, is literally called a Carian servant, linking the eternal cities with Caria in an alliance perhaps that might have allowed them to learn more about the stars from the Albinaurics. At any rate, Renala, with her full moon sorceries, was the champion of Caria. A prominent one too, apparently.
She was the easiest boss.
It's no surprise.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, we got her. That's it? Okay, hero.
When you look at the powerful characteristics of her full moon, it has immense gravity and it eclipses all other magics. It lowers defenses. It is enchanting. And Renala used all of these traits to charm the Academy, to bewitch them, and become not just the Queen of Caria, but also the master of Raya Lucaria itself. And so, of course, here is her portrait, displayed most prominently in the Academy of Raya Lucaria, right next to what many assume is a portrait of Selen. For if you unmask her in-game, then she actually looks very similar to this witch, someone who was worthy of an entire conspectus and apparently was the most promising sorceress in the history of the Academy, but even Selen, with all her promise, or perhaps because of her promise, would not be tolerated in the end.
If you recall, I was exiled from the Academy of Raya Lucaria. It was for attempting to restore the primeval current of Glintstone sorcery. The toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family can rot for all I care. I want Glintstone sorceries that open our minds, unbound by terrestrial taboos.
For Selen to know so much about what she calls toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family, I assume she was a part of the Academy during Renala's reign over it, and that it was Renala's influence that finally led to the Academy's intolerance of primeval current research.
She was jealous of baby girl.
And Selen wasn't the only one expelled from the Academy. The Masters Azure and Lusat, two of the founding masters of Glintstone sorcery, were at some point driven from the Academy as well.
Was getting jealous
and
of
it's
them.
easy to see why. The primeval current is dangerous. Lusat's mind was broken after watching a star cluster break apart. Azure saw a darkness in the primeval current and was left fearful of its abyss. And imagine something so dangerous that just looking at it can damage your mind irreparably. In this way, the primeval current is almost Lovecraftian in its horror. We can't pin down the exact truth of why it terrifies, but we see its terrible effects on others and are left to wonder. What's more, this cosmic current is primeval. It's one of the first, if not the first thing to exist in the universe. And the fact that our cosmic origins might be terrifying really is kind of a bizarre and bewitching thought, right? I mean, I want to know what's in this current that's driving everybody insane. Although I will mention again, we kind of know that at least creatures like Estelle are up there, and Estelle kind of is a signature, horrific Lovecraftian monster, so yeah. At any rate, Raya Lucaria was an institution now, with power and influence in the lands between, and with these things, naturally, there would have come a need for self-preservation. And the biggest threat at this stage wouldn't have been external, it would have been internal. The biggest threat was probing the primeval current too deeply. And so, while primeval current research seems to still be okay as long as it's under the Carolus or Olivinus conspectus, a line was drawn, and the Masters Azure and Lusat were eventually driven from the Academy, as was Selen the Witch. When we first meet her, Selen states that Glintstone sorcery is rooted in the study of the stars, and she laments that most sorcerers have forgotten that fact. She resents that the sorcerers took their power and then sort of turned a blind eye to deeper research in order to protect themselves, and it's kind of easy to empathize with her and to see her as this underdog fighting for the truth against an enormous institution. Even Fops thinks she's a good person in the end, but can you really blame Raya Lucaria for taking a stand when you see this? This is a school of graven mages, a mass
I
of
saw
sorcerers
that
fused
thing.
together so that they might be fashioned into the seeds of stars. As the lore goes, this
what
was
happens when
apparently
you do
a
that
valid line of
glintstone.
research into the primeval current,
smoking
and
them rocks,
that
y'all.
in the name of this research, fellow sorcerers should
Stay
be
off the
collected
drugs,
and
y'all.
fused
Stay off the weed.
together in a cluster to, I guess, create a star made of life. These creations were considered the nightmare of the Academy, and rightfully so. They represented Selen's complete loyalty to the truth, no matter the cost, to her fellow man. Naturally, such a thing had to be forbidden, but then you have to empathize with Selen a little bit and agree that it is a bit ironic that the exact line of inquiry that gave rise to the Academy was the very thing that posed a threat to its existence in the end. Eventually, the Academy would seek to rid
said,
itself
"Come at
of
me."
Caria's influence, but the Carian
What's she
royal
about to
family
do?
had long prepared for the disloyalty of the Academy. There's a reason why the Carian Knight's shields are extremely magic resistant. There's a reason why there are many spells based on a policy of
See, my
Carian
turtle
retaliation,
sword
where
couldn't do that,
magic can
John.
be absorbed and then turned back against its
Poor
caster.
brothers.
There's a reason why their knights were specifically sworn to the moon, not the
Their
stars.
outfits are tough.
Renala, as a proficient astrologer, might have even foreseen the eventual
can
disloyalty
code
of the Academy,
Dang, I
although
gotta
that's
do
just
that joint.
speculation
Code that joint
on my
in
part.
magic.
But
I've never
before
done
that,
that.
there was another war that would come first.
Well, my magic
a war
wasn't
against
good,
the
that's
champions of gold, which Caria was
Magic
extremely
grease, some
prepared
holy
to
grease and
face
some
as well.
flame grease.
The Order of the Erd Tree had conquered fire giants, the Storm Lords, and Caria and the Academy were next, it seems. Led by Radagon, who we now know was a part of Marika, a great war
Yes.
began. But here, the Order of the Erd Tree actually met their match. Despite numbering fewer than 20, the Carian Knights were a match for even the champions of gold in battle, and enchanted troll knights fought on Caria's side as well, called
Yeah,
into
I remember
service from
them.
an ancient oath made with Renala back in her youth atop the mountaintops of the giants.
What was she doing with them
And so,
trolls?
instead of weathering a stalemate, a truce was proposed between the two parties and
She about to
sealed
do boo
in
boo.
holy matrimony.
Radagon once cleansed himself
Come on,
with
Pastor T,
celestial
I hear
dew,
you.
repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to Renala. The Order of the Erd Tree and the fate of the moon were conjoined,
And he went back to
and
America.
all the wounds of war forgiven.
And of course, we all know that Radagon is Marika, but no one else did. And so secrecy was of the utmost importance to Radagon, and he imposed this need upon his newly acquired vassals. These are the Carian preceptors, essentially professors of sorcery who serve the Carian royals. They wear these blue robes embroidered with cosmic designs, which is a reference to Caria's astrological heritage, surely. But when
あいつは IQ200 以上の超天才野郎だった。
Radagon married Renala, he ordered the Carian preceptors to wear an additional piece of attire, a mask with the mouth
said, "Y'all
sewn
too
shut
ugly,
with
yo,
gold
and you
thread
gotta shut
in
up."
that signature crisscross pattern that is emblematic of Radagon, to make it clear that all their matters
Because
were
it's
to be kept
America.
strictly private.
When
For
you
of
get
course,
under the
Radagon was hiding
mask.
something that might be able to be seen if
under,
anyone
see,
looked
he's
at him
presenting
too
himself
closely.
as a
Indeed, this
mask to
desire
the
for
people.
secrecy was well founded, for
Not
someone did
understanding.
look at him too closely during this time. A sculptor who secretly rendered this dichotomy
That's
between
literally what
Radagon
I
and
said.
Marika into his work. But no one else discovered Marika Radagon's secret, not until we came along. And long before that,
ruined it all.
Radagon would leave Renala, and her heart would go along with him.
Nah,
And it was
her heart
then
isn't
that
her
those at
little-
the Academy realized that Renala was no
little baby.
champion after all.
Dang, they said
When
you
we
ain't
see
getting
her,
no
we
boys.
realize that she was likely
get no
left quite
girls.
witless and innate after this loss of Radagon, and so it was no surprise that the Academy took this chance to rebel against the Carian royals.
Oh.
With Renala essentially held hostage and safely locked in their grand library, the Academy went to war with Caria, focusing their assault upon Caria
You the
Manor, for that is
man.
where a siege commemorated by this graveyard of swords took place. The enchanted soldiers who fought on behalf of the Academy were named the Knights of the Cuckoo, wearing red and blue surcoats that depict their namesake and carrying shields that boasted high magic damage negation. They were explicitly purposed as mage hunters and have been quoted as stating, "Our enemy is none other than Caria itself." They also throw Albinoric pots, which reference the torture of Albinorics and the hatred of Albinorics that the Cuckoos have. Again, the Albinorics are found throughout all Caria, so these Knights of the Cuckoo were fighting against some true enemies here. But despite some of their descriptions saying that the Cuckoo Knights were sworn to the Academy, I think that's actually just wishful thinking by Raya Lucaria. The Scholar's armament and shield spells, for example, were actually spells that were quote-unquote taught to the Knights of the Cuckoo as payment for their contract. So they were getting paid to fight, and learning these low intellect spells suited them because they were not proficient sorcerers. For example, instead of casting spells, they would crush broken clumps of glintstone, dubbed faux sorceries or fake sorceries by the Academy. But most telling about their loyalty is the Cuckoo Knight armor, which says, "Its left breast is emblazoned with a peering cuckoo, whence came their name,"
That's not it.
which straight up admits that perhaps the bird's shrewd gaze is an expression of their refusal to be mere servants of the Academy. And in the end, the Knights of the Cuckoo failed pretty hard. They were not only defeated in the siege of Caria Manor, but they were turned into puppets there, and many now fight on Caria's behalf. We get an idea of how much they must resent this when they somehow break free and confront Pydia, a Carian, an Albinoric, and a mage. 3 things that they absolutely hate. But unfortunately, guys, that's where I have to leave things for now. There's an entire summary I also wanted to do about Celia, the town of sorcery, as well, but honestly, I feel like Celia is very difficult to speculate on and puzzle out, so considering how long that would take to put into words, I think it might have to wait until another video. But please subscribe, because I will talk about it eventually, and I think I'll also give Selen her own Prepare to Cry episode as well. Hers is going to be amazing.
Y'all subscribe to
There's some good things ahead,
and
as
also
always.
subscribe to
Special thanks to
Fattacheenie TV.
Quelag for reviewing this script, and of course
He ain't
to
talking about
Miss
the ball.
Pat1, who did all of the incredible visuals in this video.
Okay,
He's
he
a
had
true master,
somebody do the
and I'm lucky to be working with him.
Okay,
But
that makes
I'll see you in the
sense.
next one, guys. Thank you for watching.
All right, brother. Hey, y'all, make sure that you give my boy Fattacheenie a like. I think it's this. Yeah. Make sure you give my boy Fattacheenie a like, y'all. Well, I kind of like it like that. Yeah, make sure you give my boy Fattacheenie a like, y'all. Listen, we are down to 3 more episodes in this series. This next one, the Lord Mikola, looks pretty good. Even the Lord Millennia look kind of good. Now the Lord of the Dragons, y'all see that joint? That joint is almost 2 hours long. I need some likes for the next 2 videos. I'm gonna do the next 2 no matter what, but y'all gotta blow this series up for me to do that last one. That's almost 2. Even the Lore of Millennia is an hour long, but I'm gonna do it. Shout out to my boy Yoda. I'm gonna do it. Now after this, I'm done. We gotta go back. Fattacheenie TV is not a reaction channel. I'm sorry, and I'm not a lore reaction channel. As you can tell, I'm fading fast, brother. I'm trying to do these videos, but it's just not me. It's a gaming channel, bro. So we gonna get to some games. I'm not saying that we won't go back to reactions, and I'm not saying that when the DLC comes out and I beat that, we definitely gonna do some lore with that as well. But I need to get back to the gaming, brother. I need to get back to the gaming. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series. If you are, give it a like. If you like the content, hit subscribe. Be part of the Fattacheenie fam. We're growing each and every day. Most importantly, I hope you have a blessed one. I will see you on the next one. Later.